Hello there. Today I'm going to tell you about some behavioral research which I found interesting. Hello there. Today I'm going to tell you about new behavioral research, specifically in the field of primatology. But I have one bonus research in the end of the video, so stay tuned and watch till the end. And let's get started. When we think about animal hierarchies, especially primate hierarchies, we often picture the alpha male, like huge, cruel, dominant, the boss of the group. But modern science says it's not that simple. A massive new study looked at 253 populations from 121 primate species around the world, from baboons to bonobos, and asked a simple question. Who actually wins when males and females comes into conflict? The answer, it's complicated. Incredibly, 70% of primate species showed no clear dominance by either sex. That's right. In most species, neither males nor females consistently win. So much for the universal alpha male stereotype. But still some patterns did emerge. In 17% of species, males tend to dominate. These are usually terrestrial group-living primates like baboons or chimpanzees that follow polygynous mating systems. Males are bigger, compare fiercely, and use their strength to control the access to females. However, in 13% of species, females hold the upper hand. These are often arboreal or tree-dwelling primates like lemurs or bonobos, where females choose their mates and compete with each other, sometimes even evicting rivals. So, where are the alphas? Turns out they are exception, not the rule. The researchers tested five possible evolutionary explanations for these sex differences. Two stood out. Reproductive control equals dominance, which means if one sex controls who gets to reproduce, they usually dominate socially too. And female-female competition matters. In species where females fight hard over reproductive opportunities, they often gain an edge over males. And of course, reproductive costs matter too. In species where females face high biological burdens, like pregnancy, lactation, or infant care, they may avoid risky fights, giving males a physical or a social advantage. So, what kind of species tend to have female bias dominance? Well, they usually live in pairs or alone, not big groups. Have equal body size between sexes, which is called sexual monomorphism. They do practice predominantly monogamy. They are more arboreal than terrestrial, and they show low reproductive synchrony, meaning that not all females fertile at once. In these systems, females can avoid being controlled and often manage group structure, even kicking out rivals, which is crazy. By contrast, male dominance is linked to polygyny, where one male mates with many females in large group, with more females than males, and that is crucial detail. Also, male bias body and canine size. In these systems, they tend to live on the ground where males can physically block and defend females. And last but not least, fission-fusion dynamics where groups split and rejoin. In fact, the evolution of moving from trees to ground seems to have shifted power toward males. Why? Because on the ground it's easier for them to control access to mates and prevent females from escaping, which is crazy. Still, dominance is not only about strength. Some species show clever female reproductive strategies. For instance, bonobo females have extended receptivity and fake fertility signals to avoid male control, and lemur females have ultra-short fertility windows, making it hard to males to monopolize them. So even without big muscles, females often find strategic ways to keep control. What does this mean for us humans? Well, humans are primates too, but we are only moderately sexually dimorphic, and our societies are incredibly diverse. This suggests our ancestors likely had balanced power dynamics like bonobos or some chimpanzees, rather than a fixed hierarchy. Our time, culture, institutions, and economic systems may have shaped gender inequalities far more than biology did. In other words, gender power dynamics in humans are not set in stone. They're flexible and largely cultural. So here's the takeaway. There is no universal rule about which sex dominates. Primate societies show every pattern, from male-led to female-led to fully equal systems. This study, published in the Journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, offers a powerful insight. Dominance isn't destiny. It's shaped by evolution, ecology, social structure, and strategy. And it reminds us to question the idea that power must look in a certain way, in animals or in us. You know, we are used to thinking that language is a unique human trait. But what if our relatives from the African jungle also have something very similar? Yes, we're talking about bonobos again, our closest relatives among primates. Just think about it. We share 98.8% of our DNA with them. And as it turned out, their communication is remarkably similar to human speech. A team of researchers from Zurich and Harvard analyzed 700 audio recordings of bonobos vocalizations made in the wild in the Kokolapori Reserve, Democratic Republic of Congo. Each sound was analyzed in context, what the animal was doing before, during, and after the call. What was the situation around it? Was there a predator, food, other animals, and so on? So, what makes this system similar to human language is composability. The ability to combine individual words or vocalizations, in the case of bonobos, to create new meaning that depend on structure and order. Scientists have discovered four combinations of sounds, three of which are non-tribal. Their meaning arises not as simple sum of parts, but through interaction. An example from the study. Squeak, I want, plus whistle, stay close. In a conflict situation, it turns into let's calm down or even peace. It is similar to how in human language the phrase bad dancer is not just a combination of bad plus dancer, but a semantic unit with an evaluation. How was this proven scientifically? To check whether these combinations really have an independent meaning, the researchers used the method of distributive semantics, a tool that allows you to analyze meaning through context. They created a multidimensional semantic space in which each individual sound, for example A or B, is a point. A group of points of the same type has its own center, barycenter so-called, a cross in the illustration. Combinations of the type AB are located in this space depending on their value. In this absolutely lovely image above, you can see how the researchers visualize the value space of sounds and combinations. Each part of the analysis is a step in verifying that AB is indeed a unique, non-trivial combination. Step 1, distance between A and B. They measured how far A and B are apart in the semantic space. If they are far away, they have different meanings. Step 2, random value boundary. Type A was randomly divided into two groups, pink and red, calculated the distance between their centers. repeated 15 times, and they obtained so-called the threshold of random difference for A. The same procedure was done with B. Step 3. Is AB just A or B? They check how close AB is to A or B in the value of space. If AB does not match either of them, then it's a new value, not just a copy. Step 4. AB versus other sounds. Compare whether AB is closer to A and B than to other random sounds. If so, then A and B really create meaning pair, not random combination. And step 5, hypothetical sum, A plus B. Add the coordinates of the centers of A and B, get the point A plus B, hypothetical sum of values. Since all these conditions are met, the combination is considered non-trivial composition, which means has its own meaning as in human language. This proves once again that bonobos can build meanings from sounds, and this is the real proto-language. So what does this mean for us humans once again? These results challenge the notion that only humans are capable of combining meanings in language. If bonobos already have these such skills, then perhaps our common ancestor with them also had the rudiments of language. According to researchers, the basis for speech could have appeared more than 7 million years ago, even before the human and bonobo lineages evolutionarily separated. Therefore, language is not a magical gift, but a gradual evolutionary ability that could develop in several species simultaneously. The study was published in the journal Science. It's not about bonobos, it's about you and me. So, so the next time someone says, humans are the only ones who can speak, think of bonobos. Their language is not just a bunch of words, but it is a language. Laughter. We should think of it as a uniquely human trait, something that bubbles up from a good joke or just a funny moment. But what if laughter goes deeper than just humor? What if it's something we share with our closest evolutionary relatives? Let's talk about this. A new study led by researchers at Indiana University revealed that bonobos not only laugh like us, but may actually feel more optimistic after hearing laughter. This remarkable insight into the emotional lives of apes could reshape how we understand empathy, cognition, and the deep evolutionary roots of our emotions. The research team worked with bonobos at the Ape Initiative at Des Moines, Iowa, including the famous language-using bonobo named Kanzi. They conducted what's known as a cognitive bias test, a tool used in animal psychology to detect emotional states by observing decision-making in ambiguous situations. Here's how it worked. First, bonobos were trained to associate black boxes with tasty food rewards, and white boxes with disappointment, no treats inside. Once that association was set, the researchers introduced gray boxes, which the bonobos had never seen before. Then came the twist. Sometimes the bonobos heard recordings of bonobo laughter before being presented with the gray box. Other times they heard a neutral control sound. This image shows the experimental setup used in the study. B. The bonobo sits inside an enclosure positioned near the initiator button, A. When the bonobo presses the button, A, it signals that it's ready to start a new trial. Then experimenter D places a test box, C, either black, white, or the ambiguous gray, on a table in front of the enclosure. The bonobo can then choose to approach the box, go, or press the button again to skip it, no go. The box color determines whether it's familiar, black, which means reward, white, which means no reward, or ambiguous gray, which means unknown. The critical test was whether bonobos were more likely to go towards the gray box, interpreted as optimism after hearing bonobo laughter compared to a control sound. This setup allowed researchers to test how hearing laughter influenced decision making in uncertain situations. The result? After hearing laughter, bonobos were significantly more likely to approach the gray boxes, a clear sign of optimism. It's the ape version of the glass half full mindset, if you want it. This means that laughter didn't just echo in their ears, it changed their emotional state. Bonobos became more optimistic, more hopeful, simply by hearing the sound of another's joy. Laughter-like vocalizations aren't unique to humans. All great apes, bonobos, chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans produce similar sounds during play. Acoustic studies suggest that these playful vocalizations share a common evolutionary origin with human laughter. But this study goes further. It's the first experimental proof that great ape laughter also produces emotional and cognitive effects, just like in us humans. Why does this matter? Because emotions influence how we think, how we remember, pay attention, and make decisions. And while science has long focused on negative emotions such as fear or aggression, this research is part of a growing push to explore positive emotions, especially in non-human animals. This ability to catch emotions from others, what scientists call emotional contagion, is thought to be one of the evolutionary building blocks of empathy. And it's not just a human thing. These bonobos suggest that such complex emotional responses may have deep evolutionary roots, predating language itself. This research was also one of the last studies to include Kanzi, the legendary bonobo who could communicate using symbols on a keyboard. He passed away recently, but this legacy, as a bridge between human and ape understanding, lives on. Bonobos are an endangered species, and research like this underscores just how emotionally and cognitively rich their lives are. As Dr. Winkler puts it, we have so much to learn from these incredible animals. So the next time you laugh, whether it's a giggle, a snort, or a belly laugh, remember, you're not alone. The joyful noise echoes across millions of years of evolution, shared with our primate cousins. And it might just make someone else, even a bonobo, feel a little more hopeful too. And just like I promised, the bonus research. Fish are smarter than you think. How many new experiment proves the complexity of their thinking? Stay tuned. What do you think of animal intelligence? We usually think of crows, dolphins, or chimpanzees after all. But what about fish? They're often considered lower creatures for some reason, acting solely on instinct. However, modern research disproves this idea. Scientists from the Wageningen scientists from the Wageningen University in the Netherlands studied the cognitive abilities of fish and argued that we have been underestimating their intelligence for years. And the reason is an over-reliance on laboratory research. Most experiments, more than 90%, are conducted under controlled conditions, with fish bred in captivity. But this situation does not allow us to see the true behavior of animals. In captivity, fish behave differently. Their adaptive mechanisms change and the results are distorted. That's where researchers have developed a new inexpensive tool that allows you to study the thinking of fish right in their natural environment, in rivers, lakes, and ponds. Ponds, not ponds. The new device is a kind of feeder with colored discs. To get to the food, the fish must learn to move the correct disc. This method allows researchers to evaluate not only associative learning, but also memory, decision-making, and social behavior of fish. The tests were conducted on two species, guppies and nine-needle sticklebacks. The results are impressive. The fish gradually learned to choose the correct disc, demonstrating a learning curve typical of the memorization process. Importantly, the device allows for several trials in a row without participation of researcher, which means with minimal interference in the natural life of the fish. This is not only reduces stress in animals, but also makes the experiment ecologically valid, as close to reality as possible. In additional experiment, guppies were observed individually. It turned out that fish use different social strategies. Some actively learned and obtained food on their own. These are called producers, while others, collectors, simply observed and used the results of other people's work. Interestingly, the majority of the population, approximately 80%, turn out to be foragers, which is consistent with known models of social behavior in animals. These findings can help us to better understand social roles within fish groups, as well as the relationship of cognitive behavior to factors such as predation risk, dominance, or differences in characters such as courage, curiosity, and aggressiveness. The device can be easily adapted to different species of fish by changing the size of the holes, the shape, or the mechanism of opening the discs. It can also be used to study other animals, even reptiles. Since it is based on well-known laboratory learning testing methods, it is now possible to directly compare laboratory and field data. The device can also be used to study cognitive ecology, the science of how environment affects the development of animals' cognitive abilities. Well, you might ask, why is this necessary? By studying animals in their natural environment, we get real insights into their behavior, emphasizes Alexander Koreshal, one of the main authors of this research. This is not only a deeper understanding of the evolution of cognition, but also a contribution to species conservation and animal welfare. This device is simple, cheap, yet a revolutionary tool that opens a new era in the study of fish intelligence. And perhaps it will make us rethink who we consider smart in the animal kingdom. So here are the links I used creating this presentation. You could find them in the description of this video. So right in this moment, I want to thank you for your time and remember, keep learning.